So I've been a PT for 36 years. I have been a pelvic PT for 23 years. I'm board certified women's specialist in PT. I am pelvic rehab certified. And I was working in a private practice, seeing women every 30 minutes. And right before COVID hit, I just felt like, well, I'm getting older. I'm burning out. I can't keep up. And it's amazing. I tried everything. I was making sure my diet was on track. I was making sure I did a little meditation before work. I exercise. I eat right. I was just doing everything thinking, why am I so exhausted from this? And why am I not enjoying it like I used to enjoy it? And I just kept thinking it was me. I thought it was menopause, going through a lot of changes, like, oh man, you are just all whacked out. And thank goodness COVID stopped me in my tracks and let me think for a second, like, what's going on? I was like, I love what I do. I couldn't imagine any other job, even if I was just playing around going, okay, you could do whatever you want to do. What do you want to do? I want to do PT. This is my passion. It was how I was doing it that was just completely burning me out. So pelvic clients are complex, almost all of them, right? There's a lot that we should be looking at it more holistically. And I had 30 minutes and I was seeing 12 people a day. And for me, being older school, just clicking boxes on the electronic medical record was nothing was resonating. There was no humanity and really getting to know that client. And so I was starting to realize, and once again, I thought it was menopause. I was starting to realize COVID, I stopped for a second and I was like, that's it. I can't remember who is this. Continue doing what I'm passionate about. I just have to fix how I'm doing it. So I opened my own practice in 2020 and there was connection there. I never in a million years would I have thought that I wanted to be a business owner. That is definitely not me. Those are not my skills. And I was just, I wanted to make change basically. So I opened a cash-based practice, and at first that didn't sit very well with me. I felt like I was only catering to certain clients that could pay out of pocket. And what I've realized now since then is that has enabled me to be flexible with my time, my energy, and I am actually doing more for community and volunteerism and creating and changing the profession than I could have ever done before.
It sounds like COVID saved your pelvic health physical therapy career.
Definitely. And saved me personally. I honestly, like, I was burning out. It wasn't good. I was counting the days till retirement, and that's not me. I'm a really positive person, and to be like counting down 10 years and 9 months, like, just wasn't good. It wasn't good.
For the audience who might be, OBGYNs, who might be nurse practitioners, some of those professionals we know now are seeing 25 patients a day, 25 patients a day or more. Mm-hmm. And so when you're saying, well, you had 30 minutes, they're like, what's wrong with that? Right. Why? So I want to kind of, for the audience who might, not understand, well, as a pelvic health physical therapist, why would that have led to burnout? Can you go back into that a little bit?
Definitely. I think some of it is my career started in acute rehab. I went to acute care. I have done some home health care, and then outpatient. So I've really seen a little bit of everything. And I think the driver is not only the passion for women's care, but you just see how differently we're treating women's care than everything else from a PT standpoint, every other type of practice. So we don't have the team support. And I felt like maybe that was part of the burnout, like responsible for a lot. Oh my gosh, this is happening, that's happening, but you don't have the other practitioners taking some of that off my plate, right? I felt responsible to try to help them. As well as what we do as far as physical therapist is solving problems and being a detective. And so then when you're adding, we're also thinking about all the organs. We're also trying to do internal assessment on top of a traditional orthopedic evaluation, looking externally at patterns, and then laying on top of that the mind and the soul, emotions, brain. Like we're taking everything, and there's just no way you can do that in that amount of time and do it any kind of justice.
I could not imagine seeing someone for 30 minutes and it just being like a factory,
Yeah,
right? What
my
that would do for their health and then my mental health as well.
right,
Yeah.
right. My treatments are an hour, and I actually put a 30-minute buffer between clients. I do see men. We're kind of talking perinatal time period now, so that's a huge part of what I see. So pregnancy, postpartum, but that postpartum is forever. So, somebody's coming in, a runner with a knee complaint that just no one could get better, seeing great clinicians, and ends up with me, and here it's C-section scar, just pulling that pelvis, pulling her knee. And as soon as we got that under control, knee problem gone. So, something that on the outside seems so far removed, right? But I see the gamut. I see young teens that can't insert a tampon. And luckily, there is one nurse practitioner in the area who sees it and right away says pelvic PT, or sees the young girl, but any woman who the pelvic exam is traumatic. We should stop. We should stop that. Oh, it's one of my things. That is a red flag. More is going on here. Rushing, hurrying up through it is not helpful, right? So she sees that. So she will send young girls. So I see, puberty, um, pregnancy, postpartum, menopause, and then definitely complex chronic pain. A lot of chronic pain tied with pelvis. So a nice mixture.
One, you have been able to help more people than when you did working back to back to back 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And your mental health has improved. But
Mm-hmm.
then there's this stigma about cash pay services in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
So how
Mm-hmm.
were you able to even navigate those waters as early as 2020 when you opened up your practice?
It was so foreign and so new to me. And my personal ethos, I'm very frugal with my money. So I know if it were me, I would probably have a hard time putting money out, something that should be covered. I'm spending money on my healthcare. It should be covered there. We know that things are so much easier to treat if we catch them more acutely. But often I find who ends up with me is they have already tried to go through their insurance, and that just wasn't connecting, wasn't getting things better, and then they end up with me. So we've prolonged their treatment, and things. Then we all know it gets harder to treat and spreads. So that that idea of cash based, some clients fully understand, and that's how they're rolling, and they get it. And other people, you really hear some negative feedback over the phone of, and I understand their frustration. It's hard enough to find a pelvic therapist, and then very often they're calling and calling and no one is taking their insurance. um, I think when we back it down, I was having clients who had $50 copay, $80 copay for a half-hour session. My fee is not this much more for an hour session. And I guarantee you, I am way more available to you. I mean, even I tell my clients, I'm not seeing that number of client in a week, right? So if you have a question and you text me, or like, I'm able to help you on the outside. So I know the care is definitely worth that, but I do understand that not everybody can do that.
Of course. I mean,
Yeah.
you hit it on the nail. You're more available for people. how many doctors can say that they're available or even want to be available for patients outside of kind of the time that they're meeting them? You
Right.
know, we have these
Right.
portals that we put so much, effort into, honing in a system that, unfortunately is just disjointed because there's really not a network of providers who are reading even the same notes. I mean, how many times do people have to fill out the same questions over and over and over again when they go to someone different?
Exactly. And I know that even the GYNs were saying to me, I don't understand your evaluations, right? All of our abbreviations and the electronic medical record for outpatient and the length. Our evals were getting to be 4 or 5 pages long. I know they don't have the time to read that.
Sure.
Okay, maybe they're seeing the impression at least and getting something. So there's a lot of time in that documentation that then is really not being carried on. Like you're saying, we're trying to increase communication, and really, I'm not so sure. Yeah,
Right.
that it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the perinatal population, the pregnancy and postpartum population, because you've created a to me, I brought you on. I wanted to understand more about this network that you've created specifically for this population. Uh,
Yeah.
so, I mean, just
Yep.
to give our audience a little background, pregnancy and postpartum care, we still treat it as an elective procedure in the hospital where you have the right to choose where you want to give birth. You can do it in your home, you could do it at a birth center, you could do it in a hospital. So it's an elective procedure. But of many of the common elective procedures that we see in the hospital, it gets the least amount of attention, at least from physical and occupational therapists. The least
Mhm.
amount of support, if you will, versus an elective procedure, say on the knee, on the hip, on the shoulder, on the back. I know I'm going to be seen by an occupational and physical therapist before I leave the hospital.
Yeah.
But yet, if I have a C-section, I'm on my own. Hopefully, I can Google someone if I get to the point where I'm in pain and it's referring down to my knee and I can't run and it's just way down the road, in terms of those services. So what have what network have you put together? Tell us a little bit more about that for this population.
Mhm. Going back to what you were saying, how many things do we prehab because we know it's coming on? So wouldn't this be an ideal population to put the education and the connections up front and get ready for something that we know is going to happen? It's not a surprise. It's not an injury on the field that just happened, right? So we could really be educating the family and the woman ahead of time. So what happened was in October of 2021, a local chiropractor who works with pregnancy and postpartum came to meet as a marketing, little meetup. And, I do that all the time. And she and I just had this passion and the same frustration. She had been in this area for a long time and knew so many other passionate women in different fields. I was saying the same thing. And we said, you know what, let's get these handful of people together for coffee one day and just talk about like the perinatal time, what we do, like, whatever, having no idea what was going to transpire. And then, make a long story short, May of 2022, the website, April, the website went up for the Perinatal Partners Network. And so what this is it's designed to speed up women making the connection to the support and the care that they need. It is specifically in like 3, 4 counties in our area because we wanted it to feel community and the village again. So anybody could Google some of these things and, find practitioners, but we wanted it to be like, we know these practitioners, we know, who maybe is a good fit. We feel comfortable referring you to these people. And I think watching women, instead of me just Googling, like, who's a mental health practitioner? Okay, you know what? Call that woman. I can say, here's this list on this website. We have vetted, We meet 4 times a year, and our requirement is that you just come to one meeting a year. We move the meetings from county to county. We move the time, the day, trying to make it so that people can come. I know the easy solution most people would be thinking is do it via Zoom, but there is something magical that happens at these meetings when we are in person. And we're still hanging on to this old-fashioned feel of, ladies, like we need our village, and we need our support, and we're going to try to keep it like that. So what happened was it has expanded. So from May until now, we are at 17 different specialties. So I can run them through quick. We have acupuncture, chiropractic, coaching, complementary medicine, counseling, mental health counseling, doulas, education classes, fertility, lactation consultants, massage, midwives, nutrition, pediatric dentistry, personal trainers, PTs, OTs, speech and feeding, and yoga. And within all of those categories, it's amazing the subspecialties of things that people do to help women, all passionate in this area. There's 130 different practitioners now in the network. And so we learn from each other, so that when I have somebody sitting there in front of me who numerous years ago, if one of my clients would say, I'm so worried, my baby has tongue tie and I'm just not sure what to do, I would be like, oh, I'm sorry. And like, boop, no further. Yeah. Now we have these postcards with a QR code that links to the directory. And I go, oh my gosh, there's so many people that are specialists in this area on this directory, right in the area. Call them. And the beauty of it is say somebody calls me, I might not be their perfect practitioner, but I might have some answers. I might have some resources. I'm an expert in my particular field, and I'm at least keeping the ball rolling. Mm-hmm. Maybe that client wants an in-network. I have all the I know the in-network people in the area, in her area. I know the links, the directories that I could give you to look for a practitioner. So, and sometimes it's just a question that they have. And I guess the idea is we always want things to be continuing toward resolution. And for women, I feel like a lot of times it just gets dropped or it's unresolved, right? Oh, yeah, you have that. Sometimes it's a big issue that we're not listening to, we're not hearing, we're not noticing, and we're not acting on. Sometimes it's maybe a milder complaint that's to somebody like, it's a small thing, but to that person, it's a big thing. And over time, it creates another thing. And so it's always resolving it, whatever complaint. So that's what we're trying to do. And then the beauty of this is we are really trying. I know I wanted to take my show on the road, so to speak, and go out and make a difference in the world. But it feels very challenging as one small entity to get out there and change. But now 130 practitioners in 17 different specialties, now I feel like we have some force. Mm-hmm. Here's the other beauty you will appreciate. I know there are a lot of practitioners who are really in our silos. Mm-hmm. The other part of this is there's no competition here. We are all in this for the woman. So I know a lot of people would be like, you and a chiropractor are the co-founders of this and you work together? Oh, yes, we do. And do I feel comfortable with somebody if they prefer to see acupuncture mm-hmm. versus me?
Yeah.
Fine. I want every woman to understand our anatomy, to know where to find good resources, good information. I want them to be able to find their own path, advocate for their own care. And it might not look like how I would do it, right? Mm-hmm. They have their own history, their ethos, their culture, their everything. Like here's some options. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to start? Right.
Right.
And so none of this, only me as a pelvic PT, I'm the only one
Thank
that can
you.
help you. No,
Yeah.
no, our athletes have such a team behind them, right? They have it all, the trainer, the PT, the psychologist, the sports psychologist, the coach for every aspect of their sport, like that's kind of what women need. If anybody deserves it, women going through this, to me, is a time period where we start to lose ourselves. We definitely lose our health.
Mhm.
Um, Partially because there's been so many changes in that pregnancy and postpartum that have been unresolved. And then the other aspect is now that child takes all of my attention, pretty much, their needs before my needs, and time. So even somebody who was exercising and doing all the things all of a sudden isn't anymore because of time and schedule and resources. And so to me, there is a huge transition in women's lives and women's health that we have to support and try to manage better.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
also exposing them to a network where maybe now they have so many more examples of people who have been able to increase their time for self-care, because they've found that in their network, they have someone for this and they have someone for that, to do this and to do that. And it's not all on you as a mom. And now your mental
Right.
health has improved as well. Yeah, that's a big
It's
component to what you just said. 139 providers across 17 different specialties and growing,
mhm.
likely you've
Yep.
done so much in 1 year alone, Theresa.
But I think
Yeah.
that speaks to the need.
Mhm.
Honestly, we don't. So the chiropractor and myself have full-time jobs. We don't go out marketing and looking for these providers. It is word of mouth. The providers are coming to us and saying that that's how it works. They contact us, and then we meet with them and add them to the network. We have never gone out and like knocked on somebody's door and said, would you? It usually comes from maybe a woman, a client, like, oh, my doula would love this, or would, and word spreading like that. So I think it's the excitement and the need that's out there from, practitioners and women, and spreading the word that way.
Mhm.
Um, but the exciting part is, where in the world could this go? And
Yeah.
so some of the things that we're trying to expand really is the diversity within our group and the diversity of who we're impacting and touching, and making sure that we are getting our 3 counties. We are making sure that we're going into underserved areas where we're going to be at farmers markets, or a table somewhere at a school for maybe middle school kids to see what careers are out there. And instead of me having my little table as a pelvic PT, it's this whole network of, look at all these people working together and collaborating. um, and also, just moms groups, or education, politics, right? Do I,
Mhm.
by myself, do I have the energy to go and make policy change? I'm not sure. But do among the resources within this group, it's amazing. There's already somebody going to Washington, speaking on the toxic things that we're putting in and on our body. And so to hear her knowledge and her resources. So by the time you put us all together, like, yes, we do have some resources and energy to move forward. The other thing that we're trying to add to the website is a page for people who maybe can't afford the resources that are listed there, because there's nothing more frustrating than realizing, wow, look at all this help, but I don't know if I can access it.
Yeah.
So we're really trying to reach out and find in our community, how would this get done? How can somebody, and there's numerous ways and things that we're doing, even talking about us starting, could we start up some kind of clinic ourselves, a free clinic, or a, you know, whatever, I don't know, the sky's the limit. But that's what we're working on for the upcoming.
You're showing a community-based, a grassroots organization that is filling in gaps in our care that we know are like chasms at this point.
Yes. And the stories that you and I could tell, right? Of
Mhm.
individual people's stories.
Sure.
Um, and the sad part is completely unnecessary, right? We
Right.
can fix this. We can completely fix this.
Yeah.
So I think that's the drive. We know that the abuse rates are so huge. And then we know that somebody who has been abused is
Mhm.
going to have most likely high tone pelvic floor. So we know that that's going to slow labor and increase your odds. We we can fix this. We That's
Right.
what we do as pelvic PTs, right? We know that a huge percentage in the research of women fear childbirth. Not necessary. Not
That's not.
necessary. We
Mm,
can
with
all
the
help you in
doula.
so many
Yeah.
different ways to prepare for that birth, mentally, physically, emotionally, everything. Um, we know there's some amazing research, like 96% of women, their expectation going into labor and what actually happened, their experience did not match up at all. And they felt blindsided, which then when we're not expecting something makes our symptoms even worse. So some of the research shows we kind of expect to have some bladder changes. We're all like, yeah, now that I'm a mom, I'm going to leak here. And like that one's expected. So nobody's really upset about that one. We should be, and we can fix that. But it's all the other things that aren't so commonly known that, like, well, why don't women expect and know some of these musculoskeletal changes? There is absolutely no way you are growing a baby and getting it out of your body and not having musculoskeletal, psychosocial changes,
Mm.
and nobody is helping you. And you're at your most vulnerable then when you come out, and you have the life of somebody else that you're caring for. If anybody deserves a team support, it's that scenario right there.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
And the way that you're speaking, you're saying we, but you're not saying pelvic health therapists or this one profession or chiropractors. You're saying we as in a network of individuals, a network that you created, in your region. And
Mhm.
so my biggest question for you now is if you work in a silo, if you work for a company like you did before 2020, before COVID hit and you decided to branch out on your own, if you're one of those therapists or one of those practitioners or a doula that's kind of working alone and all this is now on you, what would be your biggest advice to that person? How can they repeat what you did?
Oh, it's easy to repeat what you did. Like it's how it started with, let me get to know somebody who's, you'd be surprised how many people are right within a couple miles of you that you have no idea. It still happens to me on a daily basis. Somebody will call to be on the network that is a couple miles away, a trauma doula. And I'm like, how did our paths never cross? So I think it's just taking that little bit of extra to see who's in the area, to do a little research and to meet with them. And I think a lot of times you'll be surprised at the scope of some other practitioners. Um, and once you learn a little bit more, I think we can get out of that mindset that like we're the only one that can provide and give help to women. So I think just taking that initiative to making sure you know at least one mental health that's specialized in perinatal time period, if this is who you were talking about, but one trainer who
Yeah.
really gets it, who sees the woman who says, oh no, I can't jump, and goes, oh, you need PT, or something like
Right.
that we all sort of understand what each other can do, and we recognize it then all of a sudden. So I think maybe finding the nutrition person, finding the education classes so that when you're working with somebody, even if you just have it on one little piece of paper, like here's some people around the corner, and hopefully we could get the ball rolling. We are hoping that people would just replicate this idea, have a directory in the counties near you, and do the exact same thing that we did.
Love it.
Yeah. So,
I love
and
it.
it
I love
didn't
it.
take
Yeah.
much. It does, like I
It
said,
doesn't sound like it. In just a year, you've accomplished so much, and people were actually calling you, knocking on your door to be part of the directory, saying, "Hey, I'm a practitioner that does this. Can you list me?"
yes.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, it's free to be listed. But we do want to know that we have the same ethos, that we're
Right.
all in this for this, and that you would be willing, if somebody calls you, to maybe give some free resources, advancement, like help keep that person moving in the right direction. No dead ends, right?
You are vetting people to make sure they're giving
Yes,
something back to the community. Right.
yes, yes.
Right.
And at our meetings, we literally will, like, as we go around and tell a little bit about each other, we're also looking for, hey, name one of your favorite books. Name one of your Instagram people that you follow that you think, maybe some of the rest of us, like one nugget of information or different resources so that we can all grow and work together
I
or
like,
recommend it to our clients.
yes.
So
All right. Well,
yeah,
Theresa, well, where can people find exactly what you've created so that they can really dig deep on the website, maybe, get to know the different practitioners yet that you have this so that they can replicate this somewhere else in around the country.
yeah. So it's just perinatalpartnersnetwork.com. I'm at Pelvic Room. So you can catch me on Instagram. I'm not so active on Instagram, but
It doesn't sound
a
like you
little
need to
bit.
be.
But yeah, the pelvicroom.com, Facebook. So if anybody would have any questions, by all means, Shannon, the chiropractor from McCormick Chiropractor, and I would love to help get you started, and just keep this, the collaboration, and keep the energy moving, right, in the right direction to save women's lives, right, literally.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing, Theresa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.